Welcome to BAM, Badass Moms with Lori and Jenny. We are moms on a mission to share women's stories about life, fitness, aging, relationships, travel, and much more. Hello, friends, and thanks for listening. I just wanted to take a second to give you a quick reminder about subscribing to the show. If you have not already, just take a moment and do so. This will make sure that you never miss a daily bite or an upcoming episode. And in addition to that, if you have a few extra moments and like to drop us a review, we'd really appreciate it. And there's also a sponsor of the show located at the bottom of all of our episodes. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being badass. Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the BAM with Lori and Jenny. Today we have a very special guest, Pam Moore, a former occupational therapist turned intuitive eating coach, athlete, and comedian, and mom. Pam shares her inspiring journey of finding her true passions and how she's empowering others to have a healthier relationship with food and their body. We dive into her experience with intuitive eating and her history in the publishing industry, and her newfound love for stand-up comedy. Pam's energy is truly infectious, and we are so excited to share this episode with you. Welcome to the show, Pam.
Thank you so much for having me, Lori and Jenny. It's so fun to be here.
Yes, thank you. We talked about this a little bit before the show, but I had the pleasure of seeing Pam. I don't even know. Was it like 4 years ago at Skirt Sports?
I think it was like 2016 or 17.
It might have been.
I don't know. It was a long time ago.
You know what? You're right. Because COVID just jacks with time. So
yes,
it was definitely way before that. So I've actually been following Pam for several years and was very excited to get her on the show. So thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for having me. I was so pumped when I saw your email. I was like, I know Jenny. You were like, hi, you kind of introduced yourself, or it was Allison introducing us. And I was like, but I know you. It's all good.
Yeah. I know. I was like, I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
Jenny knows everybody. And if she doesn't know everybody, she will at some point, which is fantastic. Right?
Awesome.
So Pam, let's go back to, where it all started and, what you went to school for and how that all evolved. So kind of just give us a lead up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'll try to make it really brief because I can talk and talk and talk and talk. Feel free to interrupt me. But I went to school for occupational therapy. Did that for like 10 years. Long story short, I got burnt out, as I think many people do in healthcare. Yeah. And that burnout was coinciding with like the decision point after my first child was born in 2012, I went back very part-time. And after my second kid was born 2 years later, I didn't go back. I just kept extending my maternity leave. And I had been exploring writing. And with a lot of encouragement from my husband, I dove into freelance writing first, just like dipping my toes in because, my kids were really small and I had very little childcare. And then it sort of just evolved over time. I started writing instead of like parenting, which is what I felt like I knew about and could write about as somebody with zero like real journalism experience. I was doing that. But then after a few years, I pivoted to health and fitness because I am a health and fitness junkie. Before I had kids, I've done like marathons and Ironmans, and I've definitely stayed active since they were born. I just don't have the time and the motivation.
You just kind of like, I just did marathons and Ironmans. Like, like, let's talk about that because that was before kids or during kids?
That was before. Since kids, yeah, before. I mean, I have a lot of respect for people that continue to do that after kids. But for me, it was like, I don't have the time. I don't have the interest. Yeah. And also I don't have anything left to prove. A lot of it was about my ego in my 20s and just we can talk about that. But like at this point, I'm like, I'm pretty much done proving anything. I've done the things. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll do more, maybe I won't, but like, I'm fine. I just mostly exercise now for like, fitness, fun, being social, getting out of the house, fresh air, all that good stuff. But, got into health and fitness writing, started writing for like the Washington Post and Runner's World and Self and all these outlets that I'd only ever like dreamed of writing for. Mm-hmm. And then started really digging into that. And then of course, I wouldn't say I'm burnt out on it at this point, but my interests and priorities are shifting once again. Yeah. I discovered.
I got to interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
With AI and, all that's out there, right? Like the journal, we actually just had a lady that used to be a former journalist too. How has it changed, like to actually have a real voice versus like an automation of what people want to hear. I mean,
yeah. You mean, how has it changed like the publishing industry, or how has my writing journey changed?
both. I think both.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll start with the question about personally. Like, I used to blog. That's how I discovered that I enjoyed writing and had, a little bit of aptitude for it, which I've certainly honed. It wasn't like, if you read my first blog post, it is downright embarrassing. And I'm like, why is it even still on the internet? But I'm leaving it up because I think it's important to show that like there are journeys. Like, you don't just one day wake up and start writing for the Washington Post. Like, you write something cringy and then you write 100 more cringy things. And then, eventually things fall into place. But, so the blog was, like a glorified diary, right? And it was like, I could just write whatever I want. Then when you're writing for an audience, it depends who you're writing it for, I guess. Like, there's so many different types of writing. Like, I've written personal essays. Personal essays are most like blogging versus, say, like, I've also written, I don't know, like a product review on the best massage gun that's under $100. That's like way more prescriptive, and you're looking to emulate the voice of the brand or the outlet that you're writing for. A personal essay that's my voice, but it's also what will sell. Like, no one wants to read like my musings on my blog. Like, a personal essay is more structured. It's like, here's a moment in time, but this is what I learned from it. This is really what it means. And also, is it under about 1,000 words? Because no one's going to buy anything that's over 1,000 words. So, you got to think about all those things. And then like, and which outlet would it be useful for? And how, like, where is it a match? And how could I tweak it? If this outlet says no, who else can I try? And do I need to tweak it to make it their style? So there's a lot of things to consider. Then there's the question of the publishing industry. I have not directly experienced any of my clients saying, we don't need you because we're using AI, but that's happening to a lot of my colleagues. And because a lot of publishing jobs are going away, like, I think the LA Times just decimated like, I don't want to say like 200 positions.
Wow.
Vox let go of a lot of people. The Washington Post got a lot smaller. Like, there's tons of outlets. Every day you hear about another one. Now, all these full-time journalists what are they doing? They want to be freelance writers too, right? And they have crazy connections and amazing skills. So they're in the marketplace competing for some of the same roles that I'm competing for. So I'm not sure how that's affecting me. Like, I'm doing okay as a writer, but I also, I miss a lot of the things that I loved about occupational therapy, which is like connecting with people, like doing what we're doing right now. And so I personally stopped I shouldn't say I stopped all of it, but I did a lot of healing on my relationship with food and exercise. And that's how I discovered intuitive eating. Then I went and got certified as an intuitive eating counselor. And now I'm working on growing that business. But of course, I'm not done because I have ADHD and I like everything. I just discovered comedy. So I've been like getting booked to do comedy shows lately. And that's like, oh my God, is that the new shiny object? But
one thing I will say that I love, and maybe this is what attracted me, like wanting to have you on the show and just why I followed you. And now it all connects, because you said I have ADHD and it's the next shiny object. I have the same thing. Like, I'm passionate about this and I go for it. I do everything. Like, I'm obsessed with it, spend all my time on it. And then something else sparks my interest. But what I actually love living that way. I love falling in love with something new. And luckily my husband I've been with him for over 20 years. So he does not fall in that category, but I love with projects and interests, falling in love with something new, exploring it. And then when I'm like, okay, I feel like that maybe it's time to sunset that and move on. And it sounds like you've kind of done some of those things as well.
No, I like your attitude. See, where I get stuck is I'm like, but I've like, for the writing, for example, it's not like I hate it. I don't hate it. I like it. Yeah. And I'm like, I have worked so hard to create a portfolio and a reputation for myself to where I have people coming to me saying, hey, I heard you were good. Can we work together? That takes years to plant those seeds and then see that come to fruition. I'm like, oh my God, I can't walk away from what I built. Like, this is my thing, but I do see a common thread between all the things that I'm into. It's not, they're not random. Like, I'm into creativity and I'm into connecting and I'm into like sharing and hopefully educating, informing, inspiring. And I think all of the things that I do somehow lead to that.
So Pam, I have a question. Let's go back to intuitive eating. Can you, maybe educate our listeners a little more about what that means? So like when you hear intuitive eating, does that just mean eat what you want or eat when you feel like eating? I mean, what does it mean?
Yeah, it can mean those things. It basically means stopping restricting and stopping dieting, like ending your quest for this perfect body or smaller body. Or I think especially, as you guys know, like in Boulder County, many of us are obsessed with health, but I think health kind of becomes a veil for thin. Like we don't want to say we're trying to lose weight, we're just eating healthy, but it really, I think, comes down to thinness. And I think we like put ourselves in this tiny box where we're, not everybody, but a lot of people are preoccupied with what they're eating to the point where, is it really healthy to eat, paleo or clean or keto or whatever quote unquote healthy diet you're trying to follow? Is it really healthy if it's interfering with your mental health and your ability to socialize and truly be present when you're trying to enjoy food? Or is it really healthy if you only feel like you can eat this or that if you offset it with a certain amount or intensity of exercise? And I think a lot of people know that it would be nice to have a different relationship with food. They might like to let go of some of the restrictions or rules that they have, but they're not sure how. Because it's not, a lot of it is about control. It's not like necessarily just about the food. And so I see my role as working with you to figure out what are some ways that will work for you to change your relationship with food. And is it about just eating what you want? No. Yes, there is some of that, but it's also, when you think about, well, what is intuition? Intuition is another way of saying intuition is like an educated guess. So, or like your gut. And where does some of that come from? Some of it comes from experience. So like an example I like to use is like, I'm not going to be hungry on a 3 or 4 hour bike ride. Chances are it's unlikely that my body is going to give me those hunger cues. But experience has shown me that if I don't eat at regular intervals, I'm going to bonk and have a miserable time. I'm going to be miserable just trying to turn around and get home. I want that bike ride to be fun. I want to recover from it well and come back stronger next time or my next training cycle. So what do I need to do? I need to eat every half an hour or whatever, for me that works. But like I've experimented to figure that out. So some of it is based on experience or, some of it is about just taking care of yourself. So even if you're not hungry, if okay, now's my last chance to eat before 5 hours from now, just because of scheduling, I better eat. That's a way of taking care of myself because future me is going to be ravenous and is going to raid the pantry. And that doesn't feel good.
Well, you're focusing more on the outcome you want and then backtracking and how you're going to get there with food. And at least that's what I'm hearing. And I think the same, like what's the life I want to live or the energy I want to have or the health I want to have moving forward? And how do I make sure that I do the things that build that over time?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it's more about like, how do I want to feel as opposed to how do I want to look? And there's a lot of unpacking that we have to do. A lot of people are afraid of gaining weight. And I'm not here to say, oh, like you won't gain weight. You might, I don't know. Like if you're really about the weight, I would say like, go see a dietitian. I'm not your professional, but like, just kind of unpacking what is it? Because I think what it is about weight loss is people think they're going to feel a certain way when they look a certain way. And I want people to know you can actually feel, if not that way, some version of that way right now. We can start where you are and like build on it. If it's about feeling a certain way and like, just having freedom to enjoy food. That's really what
everybody's unique and different, right? And I think, when we were talking about like blanket diets where people are like, oh, I'm going to go on a low carb or, I'm going to do this or that or whatever's popular. And it's like, but you're just going through a phase. You're not, every person's body is unique and different and requires, some people are more, athletes and require a lot more food as opposed to maybe a sedentary person that's, not exercise. I mean, like you said, you have to unpack each individual's situation and scenario. And I think that's so important. I think that's overlooked by a lot of the population because they see I want to be skinny. How do I get there? But in the process, you may be skinny, but you're miserable and you're malnutrition,
are not strong, and strength is so critical. And the thing too is like, not only is every person individual, but every phase of life, right? So, and I already told Pam that I loved her interview with Celine Yeager, but different phases of your life, you're going to require different things. And so, puberty, you require something. Motherhood, like when you're carrying babies, you require something. After having babies, you require, and then menopause is a whole different ball of wax. So it's like what used to work when I was 25, 35, 45 doesn't work now. How do I continue to listen to what my body needs and shift without judgment?
Yes. It's all about taking away the judgment and just being really, really curious. And even being curious and not judging, I think emotional eating has been demonized largely. I see so many articles that are like how to end emotional eating now. What about getting
being emotional?
Yes.
Yes.
What about just getting really curious about what is driving the emotional? Well, first of all, is it emotional? Let's look at what did you already eat today? Did you feed yourself at regular intervals? And did you give yourself like some fat, some carbs, and some protein? Let's look at the food. Like, because sometimes what we think is emotional eating is just making up for a deficit that we endured over the day. That may be a thing, right? But then there's also, there is emotional eating. What about looking at that emotional eating with kindness and going, hey, that was a tool that somewhere in my life I learned that I could cope if I had the food. And that part of me was trying to protect me. It was trying to serve me. And it's probably a young part that developed in childhood that didn't have the insight that we have now as 40, 50 something year old women, right? How can I tend to that part? How can I go to that young part of myself and say, hey, I get it. You were just trying to help with the tools that you had. But I'm here now. I'm here to give you what you need. And I can handle this without food and without you like throwing a tantrum or whatever it is. This, you know what I mean? Like it sounds woo, but it is effective. And it's a way to it's really hard to motivate yourself to change in any way based on shame. I think we all know that and maybe it works, temporarily. I think for me, it worked temporarily for sure, but I don't think it's sustainable.
Well, it's what is serving you now, right? And there's a lot of work around like the voices in your head, the things you say to yourself, and it's a lot of it's to keep you safe and to keep you comfortable and all that stuff. And I took coaching certification classes as well. I never got certified, but I did all the training and stuff. And one of the things they say is like, okay, I know, like talking to yourself, like I know you're trying to keep me safe. I'm okay. This doesn't serve me anymore, right? And letting that go.
Yeah, that's super, super helpful. I've heard people say, oh, just like tell that voice in your head to shut up and you're not listening to it. And I'm like, I don't know. To me, that seems about as effective as saying, it's Monday. I'm just not going to eat the cookies anymore ever. Like I'm done. That doesn't work. The more you say no, the more the like rebel part of you, the little child inside of you is like, no, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So instead be like, okay, that's there for a reason. What can I learn?
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I heard something about comedy and being, a comedic. Where is that kind of played in? And how did you get into that? And do you perform or did somebody just tell you you're funny so you start cracking jokes?
And have you always been funny? Like, tell us all about it.
Yeah, I will. Okay, so this is funny. I shouldn't even say. Now I'm like self-conscious of saying something funny. I'm like, now it's been built up. What if it's not? I was a really shy child. I used to hide behind my mother. I did not know how to talk to adults. I have like very clear memories of going to the bakery. Do you guys remember bakeries like before Target just had everything? I like just go to this little corner, locally owned bakery, and they would be like, "You're so cute," and either I would say nothing or I would say, "I know," which is.
I actually love that. I love that you said I know.
Because I was 4 and everybody said that I was, and I probably looked like I was 2 because I don't think you can tell on Google Meet, but I'm 5 feet tall. I've always been like shorter than the shortest kid in the grade below me. My mother started me in school when I was 4. I turned 5. They don't do that anymore, right? Like my kid with a June birthday is the youngest in her class. But yeah, I was like walking around like the tiniest little person, younger than everybody, like afraid of my own shadow. And then somehow I wasn't anymore around like 4th grade. And I remember people saying I was funny in grad school. I remember that. And I was like, you think I'm funny? Because sometimes I say stuff that's funny without meaning to be funny.
Right.
That is a thing that I do. But yeah, over my life, like people would just say like, you're funny. My husband, thank God, thinks I'm hilarious.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
But But what he doesn't do, I think he was now whenever we walk the dog, I'll be like, I have an idea for a joke. Is this funny? And he's like, damn it, I thought this was a dog walk, not an open mic. Like, what is this? But I have been wanting to try stand-up comedy for a very long time. I don't know exactly when the idea planted in my mind, but it was there. And then, of course, we all watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, God, yes.
And I was like, okay, she's my idol, 100%. Yeah. That was that before the pandemic that show got popular? Was that, I can't remember. During,
I can't even remember.
I don't know. There was no hope of anything during the pandemic. You know, stage, no hope. Everything sucked. And then
the world's end.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think. It all sort of. There's like a perfect storm. No, a perfect storm is always something bad, right?
It can be good. Like, I think it can be good.
A confluence. Let's say a confluence. Yeah. Do you guys know about the Listen to Your Mother show?
No.
Oh, you should know about it.
Is it a podcast?
No, it's a storytelling bonanza, I guess you could say. It's like this is actually part of my gateway into writing. In 2012, I co-produced the show in Boulder. It's a show that has like performances nationwide, but I brought it to Boulder in 2012 with my co-producer, and we co-produced it for 3 years. I think we always did it at the Dairy. And then what was cool was we were done and we were able to pass it on to a different team of producers, and they are still doing it every year. So it's around Mother's Day. Yeah, they do it at the Boulder Theater. And there's a cast of like 12 people reading their own essays that they wrote about motherhood. And so it's kind of like The Moth for moms, but it's not like extemporaneous. Like you have your essay there that you've written. Yeah. So like you could submit next year. Any of your listeners could submit, and you can go. It's I think it's the first weekend in May at Boulder Theater. It's awesome. You will laugh, you will cry. A percent of the proceeds goes to A Precious Child, which is a Broomfield nonprofit for families. Anyways, I freaking love Listen to Your Mother show. But anyways, last year I was on the cast, and one of my fellow castmates is the director of the Boulder Comedy Festival, which she created to see more diversity in comedy because it's so white male oriented. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And she was like, I'm done with like being the only woman in the room, done with getting treated like garbage. I'm going to create my own thing. She also teaches comedy classes. And I found out that several of my other Listen to Your Mother friends were also taking her class this fall. And it was that. And then I like ran into a girlfriend who I hadn't seen in a while who, is in remission from cancer. Our kids are like the same age. I knew her way back when. I bumped into her. We were talking about midlife crises, and she was like, I'm getting my MBA. I'm like, that's exactly what you would do. That's so you. And she's like, my friend is taking a comedy class. And I was like, I know the friend. That's like our mutual friend. So I was like, gosh dang it. Like life is short, like nobody knows what's going to happen. Why am I waiting for this? So I took the class in the fall, and we had like a graduation show in December. And then I've connected with like other people in the local comedy scene. I've done a bunch of shows. I took the class again in the spring, wrote some new jokes. And so I've been performing with this group called Moms Unhinged, and they do shows all over the Front Range. I'm actually going to be in one on May 16th in Littleton. If you have any local listeners, if they want to come listen to some mom jokes. And
is that what it's about? It's about like being a mom.
Not exclusively. It's mainly like the comics are moms. I would say at least some percentage of our content is about motherhood because there's so much fodder, right?
Yeah, I would love to go. My first instinct was, yes, I want to go. And then my second thought was, I've got 2 graduations, family in town. Like, I hear you. I probably won't be able to go, but I really want to go.
Well, it won't be your last chance.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I hope. I think I'm going to be doing comedy for a while because it's so fun.
Yeah.
So Pam, do you ever do when you guys do that show, like, is it just you up there, or you guys are all up there kind of playing off one another?
Nope. It's like, there's a headliner, which is like, the person you probably came to see. They're talking for like 30, 45 minutes. And then there's a few openers, and I'll be one of the openers. And it is, my dream to be a headliner, but just like you can't go from blogging to Washington Post in one day or 1 year. Like, I don't know when I'm going to headline a show, but I see it in my future.
Going to say, what's your biggest fear on stage? Like, because you said, you were a shy child, and now you are standing on stage, and I am not funny. I don't think I'm funny, but like, if I knew that I was standing up there, if I was standing up there and like my whole job was to make somebody laugh, I'd be really nervous if I like threw out a joke and then nobody laughed.
Yeah. You nailed it. That's terrifying.
But it's building a muscle, right? Like, I mean, you don't get the laughs without not getting the laughs.
Yes, and like exactly. Everybody bombs at some point, you know? I haven't fully bombed, I don't think yet, but like I did do a show on the day of a blizzard, and I thought they were gonna call off the show, but they didn't. Yeah. And it's actually I highly recommend, especially for you guys and your local listeners. Comic Sense is do you guys know License Number 1 in the basement of the Boulderado?
No.
Oh, it's a very cool place to go have a drink.
Was it the catacombs?
It was the catacombs.
Oh my God. I have a lot of stories about the catacombs.
I bet you do. They don't have like the $2 beers anymore, but it's like a fancy, like speakeasy vibe.
Upscale.
But there's a separate room where they do comedy. I want to say like Thursday through Saturday or Sunday. So, it was funny. We were at a Comic Sense show and my husband was like, why are you not talking to the host to see how you can work for him? And I was like, because I'm terrified. Leave me the fuck alone. Yeah. And can I say fuck on this show?
Yes, you can.
Absolutely.
I thought so. Okay. And then I was like, go over there. Like, let me like gather myself. And then I like had a little chat with myself. I was like, Pam, you have told jokes on a stage. You can certainly talk to a stranger and ask him how to work here. So I did. And so I got up there on the night of, you remember that blizzard? It was in whatever. We had a blizzard recently. I was up there, but there was only 6 people in the audience. And there's a big difference between making 6 people laugh and making like 60 or 200 people laugh. It's just different.
Yeah.
They liked it. Like, were they actually like laughing, like hysterically laughing? They were not. It was awkward. But it was fine. And like you said, it's like flexing a muscle. I'm like, okay, I flexed a muscle. And I think I definitely learned a few things. I have a little notebook where I like reflect on what went well and what I learned and what was hard. So that was like a learning experience. And I think too, like, even when I haven't like bombed, I play back my video or audio recordings and see where did they laugh? Where didn't they laugh? What could I say or do that would make it funnier next time? What can I cut? So it's definitely, I'm just trying to use it as like, honestly, I actually wrote a newsletter about this recently. I think there's a lot of parallels between getting to know your body and understanding what works for you as an intuitive eater and looking at your comedy. Because like, for example, like with the food thing, I think how many of us have eaten dessert when we said we weren't going to, and then been like, oh, I'm so bad. Oh shit. I'll do it different tomorrow. Dude. That's like coming from a source of shame and fear. Whereas when you just look at it as an experiment and you're like, okay, I ate the cake, but like then I felt bloated. I don't know. Maybe I ate too much cake. Maybe I ate it too late, or maybe it was worth it. Maybe it tasted so good. It was fine. That's very different than being like, I'm a crappy person for having eaten the cake. And the same thing with the comedy. I could bomb and that doesn't change that I'm awesome. That like my family loves me because I'm me. They don't want me to be perfect or the funniest woman on the Front Range, like, just going, okay, what can I learn? This was an experiment.
Yeah. And I with all your athletic endeavors, I mean, I think about that so much with athletics. And that's why I tried to get both my girls to be in high school sports and things like that. And of course, the more I pushed, the more they resisted. But it wasn't because I cared if they were good at sports. It was because of all the stuff that you're saying. It's the habits that you build when you are trying to improve yourself in one way, shape, or form. And it doesn't have to be athletics. It can be your writing. It can be your comedy, but you learn those skills by doing. And I'm sure your athletic background has helped you get to where you are in so many areas.
I think so. Yeah. No, I don't
your kids. So. Let's talk about, sorry to interrupt, but I don't want to forget to mention you have 2 kiddos, 2 girls, 10 and 12-ish. And how has, obviously you are an extraordinary role model, showing them they can do anything they put their mind to. What is their wheelhouse? What do they like to do? Are they like embarrassed by you? Are they like rock star?
They're probably not yet. They will be.
Oh no, no, they've been embarrassed by me forever. Like, what did I do or say recently that I can't? Oh, I said something. It'll come back to me. But also, I think they're not totally embarrassed. Like, one of my daughters was so excited the other day. She got a text from a friend and was like, is your mom a comedian? Because my mom saw her last night and said she was really funny and really pretty. And I was like, yes.
Like, yeah.
My daughter was like running up to me. She's like, Mom, you're famous.
Oh, I love it.
Anyway, what is their wheelhouse? They are both very, very creative. They like to draw and make, and my older one, who's 12, not as much anymore. She used to create these, she was really into this alien doll called a Nurly. It was like a trend that I think extended to her class and nowhere else because I'd never heard of it. These stupid, expensive, made in China Nurly baby alien things. And she'd save up her money and buy them. And she created a Nurly mansion out of cardboard boxes and things that she found around the house. And it was sick. Like really, it was like nicer than our house.
That's so cool.
So yeah. And I mean, she also, I remember her being teeny tiny and finding, I don't even know what she found. Oh, she found like my scarf and she was like, Mom, it's a baby Bjorn for my doll. Or she'd find a box and be like, oh, it's a backpacking backpack for my doll. Like super creative. And my little one also just, always drawing, making things. She writes stories. Yeah, we worked on a story together at one point. Oh, she was into songwriting at one point. But they don't do a ton of activities. Like we force them to do the one thing we force two things. One is swim team in the summer. Neither of them is good at it. I'm not good at swimming. I think that's one of the reasons I feel strongly about putting them in as kids. Yeah. I think swimming is a life skill. Like you were saying, I think failing or not doing well is, it's good to get over yourself and be like, I was last and I'm going to come back and do it another day. I think that's important. Yeah. So the swimming we make them do religious school. They don't love it. And what else do we make them do? That's kind of it. My 6th grader refused to sign up for anything at school this year. And I was conflicted. We thought about making her do cross country, but you had to decide within the first like 24 hours of school starting. And I was like, it's too much to force her into like a new school, a new environment, a new sport. And the risk I felt like was high. And I'm risking making her hate running and sports forever.
I know that you are talking to, I mean, so both girls, my youngest is about to graduate high school, but it was a battle between, do I force them knowing that they'll probably end up liking it and build these skills, or do I not force them? And it was a blend, honestly. Like I did force both my girls to go to summer camp because I felt like they needed to be outside their comfort zone, and they both ended up loving it. Thank God. But I also forced swim team because I was like, it is a life skill and there's drowning involved if you don't know how to swim.
100%.
One loved it. One hated it. So it was a crapshoot.
It's cool that you got one to love it. I got 0. I'm 0 for 2.
Yeah. I mean, I loved swim team, but I will tell you, I did my first sprint triathlon years ago. And I thought about this when I was listening to your podcast, and I was the last one in the pool.
You were?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will caveat this by they do put you in waves. Yeah. So, I mean, there are people that literally, this was shocking to me. There are people that walk the lengths of the pool. It was, so it's like, okay, if you think you can't do a triathlon, you will be shocked that there are all types. There are people walking, there are people walking in the pool, there are people biking, like it does not matter. Just get out there and try it. All different sizes, all different ages. And, but yeah, so for my group, because I was a decent runner and a decent biker, and swimming I hadn't done in years. And I was the last one in the pool, and had been worried about that. And my friend was like, you weren't joking. You were the last one in the pool. But I was like, but I'm here and I did it.
Yeah. Showed up. Yeah. Exactly. And I think it's a great example for your kids. I did a duathlon a couple years ago that I had trained really hard for. And when the day came, it was just a shit day. Like my body wasn't cooperating and the weather could not have been worse. Like I literally couldn't see on the swim because my goggles were fogging. It was like really cold out to where the water was warmer than the air. It was just like raining. I was like, is today the day I like die on my bike because a car hit me in that stupid race? But I finished because my husband came with the girls. And I was like, they didn't come here to spectate me and watch me quit for no great reason other than I'm not having a good day and it's not super fun. Like that's not how this works. So
I signed up for this. I'm going to finish.
Yeah. But as far as my kids, they don't do a lot. They have a lot of free time, but I think it's good for them. I see them being creative. I see them, I know sometimes being bored, which I think is great. I think boredom is underrated. And I don't know if we're going to force my 6th grader to do a school activity next year. My hope is that there's actually I take it back. She recently expressed an interest in volleyball.
Oh, good.
She will go in the driveway and just do stuff with we went to California for spring break and we went to Target and she's like, let's buy a volleyball so we can like take the volleyball to the beach. So we did. And now it's like her Wilson in the driveway and she's into it. And we I signed her up for a Nike volleyball camp this summer. That's like, she can walk to from our house, which is awesome. Perfect. And I think she'll do volleyball next year.
But Pam, I mean, let's think in the future. You're 5 feet tall. I mean,
but my husband comes from regular people.
Okay,
so, like,
okay.
She's going to be taller than me in like 6 months.
Okay.
I love it. That's so great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So with all the things you have going on, I always love to ask like what you're most excited about. You seem like you're excited about everything, which is awesome. But are there things on tap that you're like, could be with your family, could be you personally, could be career, like what are you looking forward to?
Okay. Can I give you my top 5?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. So number 1 or first that comes to mind is I'm going to launch a couple of intuitive eating group programs. I'm thinking in the fall. So I'm super excited. I feel like so much change can happen when people get in community. I love bringing women together. And I think that people feel isolated in their experiences and we don't want to talk about how much we like obsess about food or how we really feel about our bodies. And I think if people can get together and be open about that, it's such a catalyst for change because you take away the shame piece.
Yeah.
So I'm launching those in the fall. Super excited just to see where comedy goes. Even if it just keeps going as it's going, which means like I'm booking a couple of gigs a month and making people laugh and writing new jokes and just being creative in a different way. Even if it stays there, like that's exciting to me because I love it. My family's going to Iceland in May, June.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
Okay, I think that's the third thing, or like I said, top 5.
Got to come up with 2 more.
No, I have 2 more. I'm just narrowing it down. Like I only have 2 more. Gonna do 2 gravel races, 2 gravel bike races this summer.
Which ones?
Oh, which ones? Can these count as one thing?
Yes.
Nice.
Cowtown, which is in Kremling outside of Steamboat. That's in July. I've never done that course before. And Steamboat, which I have done Steamboat before, but not the 60-mile course, which I'm doing in August. And then for my final and 5th thing, what am I excited about? Oh, shit. I don't know. Just maybe 4 is enough.
Yeah, 4. Well, that's a lot.
I mean, you have, 4 is awesome. And I love that you're like, no, there's so much cool stuff going on. I have to narrow it down, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I do want to hit really quickly, and I know we'll probably have to wrap up after this, but to your point on instead of being in silence, being in community, I was with a couple of my girlfriends that we've been friends for over 20 years, and they live in Boulder. And one of my friends said, I was telling a friend of mine that I'm just not aging well. Like I have lines and I'm just like, I'm not aging well. And her friend said to her, you're doing great. Like you look amazing, but you don't realize how many people have work done, fillers, Botox, all the things. And
was she comparing herself, not realizing that almost everybody with disposable income is doing that?
Yes. And so we were like,
deeply unfair.
Yeah, no. And then of course I was like, just wait, because Ozempic's just catching on. So then there'll be nobody like dealing with weight issues either, not necessarily for the right reason. But I mean, it was just so funny to see her little aha moment, like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that explains
we
it.
Talk about it and we're like, you know what? I see a wrinkle here and, that's normal and let's embrace it. And we're all going through it together. Then it brings a whole different energy and shift.
It does. But, I don't hear that a lot. I definitely, with the food stuff, I definitely feel like, I don't know, we're talking about body neutrality and body positivity. Yeah. And then, at least where I hang out on the internet, there's conversations about why it's not a great idea to do the weight loss drugs if you, because they weren't really designed. I mean, I guess now they're being patented for that, but they were designed for diabetes. I think we just don't know enough about them, number 1. And number 2, I think like on an individual level, I feel like body autonomy, I believe in body autonomy. I would not tell somebody else, don't take it because it's none of my business.
Yeah.
About how they feel in their body and what they want to do with their health. But I would say on a more general level, as a society, I see it as a major problem. It feels like a little eugenicsy to be telling people that like fatness shouldn't exist. Like, what?
Well,
I don't like that.
Is it taking away overweight and obesity, replacing it with frail bones and lack of muscle mass? Like those are the things I worry about. And again, like I'm not going to tell you what to do, but for me, those are like my concern is to be healthy and strong. And if that doesn't fit into the equation of being healthy and strong and living a long health span, I don't want it.
I totally agree. And I want to also say the research that I have seen shows that these drugs can be effective in taking off something like, I don't know, over the time that they've studied them, which is only maybe a couple of years, for people who experience success and can tolerate the side effects, because some people have terrible side effects and they have to stop.
Yeah.
If you can tolerate it, you could lose something like, don't quote me, but I want to say under 20% of your body weight, 15 to 20%. So if you are, I mean, I hate to use the BMI because it's inaccurate, but let's say you weigh 300 pounds and your target, quote unquote, target weight would be, say, like 150 pounds. You're not getting there on losing 15% of your body weight. It's not going to decrease obesity the way, like you're still obese. If you're, say, 400 pounds, 300 pounds, depending on how tall you are, like you may still be in that weight category. So
interesting.
I don't think it's not doing that. Number one. Number two, I just feel like it's sending this message that like people in bigger bodies don't have a right to exist or be considered beautiful. And I say, fuck that. But I also say on an individual level, if you have experienced weight stigma, I don't blame you. I don't think you should be, you don't have to be a fat liberationist. Like that's none of my business if you want to or not. But all of this to come back to, we're not really having this conversation about faces so much. Like Justine Bateman wrote this beautiful book called, I think it's called Face. And like, I read it. There's like a handful of celebrities that are coming forward and saying like, I reject this youth, as opposed to diet culture, this like youth culture kind of thing. But I feel kind of alone in my rejection of doing extra stuff to my face. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. It's like, where are these lines, right? Like I use makeup or like,
I know.
I had Bell's palsy years ago and on my face, it has like this lack of symmetry. And some of my issues are actually like functional, like it's pulling on a neck muscle and the neck is pulling on the collarbone. I have to deal with this. So I'm like seeing a physical therapist to deal with my face. And I'm like, oh my God, where most women at my age are like feeling bad and worse every day about their faces, I'm feeling better because these issues I've been dealing with are getting actually better. But I'm like, is that different than like doing Botox? Like, I don't know. But
I know.
Horizon that you'll be chasing forever. And I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want to be on the hook for that. So
and that was in our conversation too. Like you fix this and then you need to fix this, you fix your forehead, and then you need to fix your eyes, and then you need to fix, it's like this whole slippery.
And you do in your kitchen and your bathroom is still outdated.
Exactly.
Well, Pam, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to share your journey with our listeners. And if people want to reach out to you for coaching, how do they connect with you?
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. Yeah, I could want to stay. But that would be amazing if people want to reach out. Find me on my website, pam-moore.com. It should be very easy once you get there to sign up for my newsletter, which goes out twice a month. And it's a great way to stay connected.
Yes. And we will be following you and cheering for you. And we will come watch you live. I can't wait.
Yes.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep being you and keep being badass.